The ancient world was a tapestry of kingdoms and empires, each vying for power and influence. In such an environment, diplomacy was not merely an art, but a necessity. This was particularly true for queens, who, despite the patriarchal confines of their time, wielded significant influence through strategic partnerships. These ancient alliances formed the foundation for innovative diplomacy, creating channels of power that operated beyond traditional warfare and conquest. Queens understood the necessity of coalition building. Whether through arranged marriages, treaties, or personal diplomacy, they navigated the complex social and political landscapes of their times with astute awareness. For instance, Cleopatra of Egypt and her alliance with Julius Caesar, and subsequently Mark Antony, exemplified a queen expertly leveraging personal relationships to safeguard her kingdom's sovereignty. Her actions were driven by a strategic vision to maintain Egypt as a power broker in the Mediterranean amidst the growing influence of Rome. Another remarkable example is Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt, who formed alliances not with other nations, but through trade expeditions reaching the distant land of Punt. This not only enriched Egypt with exotic goods, such as incense and ivory, but also projected Egyptian influence far beyond its borders, showing that alliances could be economic rather than martial. Her reign was marked by a period of prosperity, largely fueled by these diplomatic successes and her ability to establish mutually beneficial relationships. Despite their successes, these alliances often faced challenges. For instance, Cleopatra's affiliations with Roman leaders were contentious, ultimately contributing to her downfall following Egypt's incorporation into the Roman Empire. Alternative viewpoints suggest that her reliance on such alliances was a double-edged sword, demonstrating the fraught nature of diplomatic entanglements. Opinions differ on the effectiveness and ethical implications of these alliances. Some historians argue that genuine partnerships were rare, with many of these ties being fragile and heavily skewed in favor of the more dominant power. However, others acknowledge the savvy and foresight required by these queens to craft terms and relationships that allowed them not only to survive, but frequently thrive in contexts that were often hostile to women's leadership. The alliances fostered by these queens were more than strategic maneuvers. They were expressions of their agency and intellect, reshaping power dynamics of their times. These diplomatic efforts paved the way for future generations, establishing a historical precedent for women's leadership in global affairs and inspiring even contemporary dialogues on female agency and international relations. Through these alliances, they demonstrated their indispensable role in the geopolitical stage, linking sovereign stability with the strength of diplomatic ties across borders. Queens, throughout history, have played pivotal roles in forming and nurturing alliances that shape the course of kingdoms and empires. While often perceived as mere pawns in political games, their influence extended far beyond ceremonial appearances. They used their intelligence, diplomatic skills, and vision to forge groundbreaking partnerships, setting the stage for significant historical changes. A prime example is Queen Cleopatra VII of Egypt. Renowned for her political acumen, Cleopatra's alliances with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony were strategic moves to protect Egypt from Roman annexation. These partnerships were more than personal. They were calculated decisions resulting from Cleopatra's sharp understanding of regional politics. Her alliances ultimately delayed Egypt's subjugation, showcasing her role as a powerful protector of her kingdom's sovereignty. Another remarkable example is Queen Elizabeth I of England, whose reign was marked by careful diplomacy. Elizabeth's strategic alliances, notably with Protestant states, were crucial in countering the Catholic threat posed by Spain and France. By forming alliances based on shared religious and political interests, she successfully navigated the turbulent waters of 16th century Europe, ensuring England's emergence as a major power. Her deft handling of diplomatic relations laid the groundwork for what would become the British Empire. These queens demonstrated that alliances were not merely about marrying into power, but about leveraging relationships to achieve larger political goals. Their underestimated their capabilities. Such partnerships were crucial in securing peace, expanding influence, and achieving mutual benefits for the involved parties. However, these bold moves came with challenges. The alliances crafted by queens like Cleopatra and Elizabeth often placed them under intense scrutiny and criticism from contemporaries who viewed their actions as too bold or unwomanly. Their male counterparts often saw these threats, leading to undercurrents of tension. Furthermore, the success of these alliances was not guaranteed and required continual negotiation and adaptation to shifting power dynamics. In the broader scope of history, the role of queens in forming alliances connects deeply with themes of gender and power. While male rulers were expected to lead through conquest, queens often wielded power through diplomacy, cleverly negotiating paths to peace and prosperity. Their contributions highlight the vital, though often understated, roles women played in shaping history's grand designs. Understanding their contributions provides a richer, more nuanced perspective on how alliances have historically influenced the rise and fall of powerful states and empires. In ancient times, diplomacy was an intricate dance, often balancing power, preserving peace, and securing a future. Queens wielding influence recognized the potential in forming alliances that were as strategic as they were groundbreaking. Diplomatic strategies in ancient times involved marriages, treaties, and sometimes even wars, serving as tools for negotiation and stability. Unlike modern-day diplomacy, which might rely on economic sanctions or global organizations, ancient queens had to rely on personal networks, familial ties, and the strength of their loyalty. The significance of these diplomatic strategies cannot be overstated. In an era where nations were often embroiled in conflicts over land, resources, or succession, the ability to forge and maintain alliances could have a profound impact on the legacy of a monarch and the prosperity of her people. For example, Cleopatra VII of Egypt, renowned not only for her captivating presence but also for her masterful diplomacy, formed alliances with powerful Roman leaders like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. These alliances weren't merely personal, but were intricately political, aimed at preserving her dynasty and maintaining Egyptian independence amidst Rome's expanding influence. Another illustration of ancient diplomatic acumen is Queen Elizabeth I of England, who, although later in the historical timeline from Cleopatra, engaged in a similar delicate balancing act. While she lived in a time when formal ambassadors and letters played more traditional roles, Elizabeth was exceptional in the strategic use of marriage negotiations without ever committing, thus keeping various European powers at bay. Her deft navigation of alliances helped England emerge as a formidable maritime power. These ancient queens exemplified that successful diplomacy often required a nuanced understanding of power dynamics and cultural sensitivities. Some challenges they faced included maintaining loyalty within their inner circles and managing regional rivalries without sparking unnecessary wars. Furthermore, alternative viewpoints might argue that reliance on such personal diplomacy could lead to power being concentrated in the hands of a few, or create dependencies that were unsustainable in the long term. Ancient diplomatic strategies, when examined in the broader scope of history, reveal much about the connectivity of different regions and the progressive, albeit sometimes perilous steps that monarchs took in pursuit of peace and prosperity. These strategies also highlight the extraordinary capability and vision that these queens had in linking various aspects of governance, military tactics, and cultural proliferation, setting foundational precedents for what diplomacy became in later centuries. In the annals of history, few alliances are as captivating as those formed by queens who wielded power in groundbreaking partnerships. These iconic partnerships, often forged in the crucible of geopolitical necessity or personal conviction, didn't just alter the course of history, they redefined what was possible for women in power. One of the most compelling examples is the alliance between Cleopatra of Egypt and Julius Caesar, followed by Mark Antony of Rome. Cleopatra's shrewd political acumen allowed her to align with Caesar, ensuring Egypt's sovereignty and strengthening its position in the Mediterranean. This partnership exemplified how mutual interests in power and statecraft could merge into a historical force that combined combined Egypt's wealth and culture with Rome's might, shaping the balance of power in the ancient world. Another significant alliance is that of Queen Elizabeth I of England with Protestant Dutch provinces during the late 16th century. Amidst the backdrop of a Catholic Spanish threat, Elizabeth astutely supported the Dutch revolt, fostering Protestant solidarity and eventually leading to England rising as a formidable maritime power. Elizabeth's role as a Protestant queen in predominantly Catholic Europe brought about an unprecedented strategic partnership that protected her nation while advancing its influence across the seas. This alliance was crucial in weakening Spanish dominance and securing religious reformation, thereby impacting the geopolitical landscape for generations. However, these alliances were not without their challenges and criticisms. Cleopatra, for instance, was often vilified in Roman accounts, depicted as a seductress who ensnared powerful men. Yet, this overlooks her strategic vision, suggesting alternatively how ancient alliances might be perceived differently from a gender-neutral standpoint. Similarly, Elizabeth's alliances faced domestic opposition from those who feared entanglements in European conflicts and the financial strain of sustained military campaigns abroad. These partnerships highlight the transformative power of strategic alliances, not only in terms of political gains, but also in reshaping society.